Welcome Memoir Viewers, and today I'm going to be making a different video to what I had planned. I had planned on making a video about my twilight years, a phase of my life that is just so embarrassing to think back on. But I'm not making that today. Instead, I'm going to talk about why I don't have pride for anything I have done, despite logically knowing it's an accomplishment to have done. And so I should probably preface this by saying that throughout my entire school life, I was ahead of the curve. I was in advanced science, I was reading books. Like in primary school we would have like set reading levels, and I would be beyond those, and so they'd have to take me to the library to find a book that was of my level. And I was in advanced science placement even back then. So I was in advanced science placement even back then. And then secondary school came along, and I was in top set for everything. And I hated that fact because I didn't want to do French, but because I was in top level English I had to do French. Either way. But yeah. And so I have always accomplished so much in regards to academics. But I don't feel like I achieved anything from doing that. I feel as though, even though I should be proud of it, I'm not, because and this is my theory on it. I mean, it's entirely possible that in primary school my mum was proud of me, but I don't remember her, so. But for secondary school especially, I felt like everything I was doing was never enough. I felt like no matter what I achieved was good enough, because I didn't receive acknowledgement for achieving things. Like my report cards, is that what they're called? Like at the end of the year, they'd always come back 90% of the time perfect throughout, except PE and French. But it's quite obvious, and I made it quite clear that I couldn't stand either of those subjects, because PE I would get made fun of because I wasn't athletically inclined, and French I just didn't want to learn the language, so I wasn't interested, so I didn't try. And it was like despite the fact that 90% of that end of year report was like perfect, minus the continued comments about me not raising my hand often enough, because who the fuck wanted to participate in class? But otherwise my grades were great, and I tried so hard to do well, because I can't stand failing things. It's just not in my nature to be happy with that. But I didn't get any praise for it, and I would literally have to ask, are you proud of me? And they'd be like, sure. It sounds like you're proud of me, doesn't it? And so I think that has just continued on through all of my achievements, because it just doesn't seem like I've ever done enough. So when I lived with my sister for 3 years, my sister was supportive. She was proud of me. But my brother-in-law wasn't, and he made that quite clear because he would constantly point out all the things I wasn't doing well. So again, when I had to do PE over there, or gym as they call it, it wasn't, even though I'd done everything else that they wanted me to do, because I didn't participate in that gym lesson, I was like screwing with my education. And it's like, I try my best, despite the fact that I was in a foreign country where I didn't know the language. I was trying my best, and I was probably doing the best I could grade-wise over there. And then obviously the social anxiety led to me not participating in conversations even more than I wouldn't have done in the UK, because I didn't speak the language. And so obviously you're not going to want to participate when you don't know the language, especially when you've got social anxiety, because it becomes even more of a barrier, because you start just freaking out every time you have to try and talk to people, especially other kids, because kids are horrible, as we've covered in previous videos. And yeah, it was like nothing I ever did was enough. And so obviously I had to be the one to maintain all of this. And so now I think my standards are so high that nothing I've ever done is enough. And so like, I published a book when I was 18, which is a feat in itself, because people at 18 don't really publish books, as far as I'm aware. But it failed. Like, I was promoting it for months and it didn't do well. And so it has become so hard to enjoy writing, something I used to do constantly in the middle of lessons, at home, constantly. I would be writing everything. But now it feels like a major effort just to write like 5 lines. And it's just ridiculous. Like, I should be proud. I should be proud that I'm alive. People should celebrate their birthdays. I don't. I don't celebrate my birthday because I'm not proud to be alive. I didn't achieve anything by being born. And my continued existence on Earth doesn't feel like an accomplishment from me, except that I live in a first world country. It's the same for education. Like, I'm not proud of having finished secondary school, because I live in a first world country. It's sort of obligated. And so I didn't do anything except follow the law. And like, I don't have a social life. I haven't had a social life for years, if ever, because I don't actually remember a time when I had a functional social life. And so I have not got anything like that to be proud of. And I flopped out of Norwegian school, which is the country I lived in, where my sister lives. I flopped out of that because, well, first of all, I was not managing to maintain the same standard of work as a bunch of 16-year-olds. Despite being 2 years older than them, because I was a foreigner. And also because in my last sort of half year I got very physically ill, and I was in chronic pain for the last sort of 2 months of my school life over there. Which, considering I was on an agricultural course with speciality in horses, it doesn't really work, especially because you can't really ride if your back is like seizing up. There was never a diagnosis for it, and there was no pain medication that would work. And so I flopped out of Norwegian school. So I looked into doing apprenticeships over here with horses, but I soon realised that while I enjoy training horses and feeding horses and just generally caring for them, there is so much of the horse industry that I disagree with that I couldn't maintain it. And at this point I still had back problems, still undiagnosed, but still constant pain. And so I had to flop out of that as well. And for someone who doesn't like failing, 2 major setbacks like that, it just cripples your self-value. And so there's nothing for me to be proud of there. And then since then I am not one of these people that values money over life, but I had to become one of those people in order to survive alone in the UK, and knew I was not going to like, and that was mentally damaging to me. But not only that, but I was also killing myself in order to try and maintain my mental health. I was working back-to-back shifts of my one job that I hated and a doggy daycare. And so I was doing night shift, followed immediately by a day shift, followed by a night shift, followed by a day shift. And I would do this for like 48-hour periods at a time. And so I wasn't sleeping for 48 hours. And it got to a point where I was literally falling asleep at the doggy daycare. And it was so bad for my mental health. But also so good for my mental health at the same time, because if I hadn't been working with those dogs, I don't think I would have stuck it out at the job I was at for as long as I did. And I only managed to last that for 6 months. And now I'm also in a job that I can't stand, but the paycheck is big enough that I'm like, yeah, I'll be a penguin, because I keep making a joke that they want a penguin, that they don't, but I'm not one. But yeah, I keep saying that I'll be a penguin, but I don't want to be a penguin. I just hate this job, and so I'm not proud of anything I have done so far in my life, because it's never enough. The only thing I have been proud of in my life is working at the doggy daycare, because I am good with dogs, and I work well with dogs, and I will do anything it takes to look after a dog, including the environment it's in. So yeah, that was a lovely long rant about why I'm not proud of things. And I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next vlog. Peace out.